Hi, I'm Sam from Mapei, and this is Gerald. And today we're going to talk to you about surface prep and surface prep products and why it's important. So the first thing first, I'm going to ask you a question. Why do you put flour in the bottom of a cake pan? That's right, I heard somebody say it. It's so the cake doesn't stick. So it's okay to go ahead and put product down on a floor with dust and dirt on the floor, wax and grease on the floor. I'm going to help you out with that answer. No, you don't want to leave stuff on the floor. You've got to prep the floor, henceforth the name surface preparation. By prepping the floor, it's allowing to make sure, like for instance, in a cake pan, that flour's there so the cake can release. It's intentional. And you want the cake to release from the pan. With the surface prep products that we're going to go ahead and talk about today, they're there to make sure that it doesn't release, that it sticks and bonds to the floor or to the surface better. And this includes all substrates, plywood, concrete, and in some cases, over existing tile and vinyl. It just depends on what you want to do and what the finished products are. First product we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about concrete. The one thing I can tell you about concrete is that it's always in the state of cracking and shrinking up and getting smaller. It takes 100 years for a standard concrete slab to dry out completely. And in the drying out, it's shrinking and getting stronger and stronger. You can go to a concrete slab that's 28 days old, you can take a cut nail and you can drive it into that concrete slab with a hammer. No problem at all. You go to a concrete slab that's 28 years old, you have to drill a hole to put in that cut nail because that concrete's getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And in the process, it's starting to create these little cracks. And you go to a concrete slab that's 100 years old, you're burning up your drill bit trying to drill a hole to put that nail in there. Now, the reason I bring this up is that these little micro cracks, as long as they're in plane, and what that means is that the concrete is not tipping and snapping off down to a side. It's just pulling apart in plane, level. When I put a level on top of there, it's even across. As long as there is in plane, I have a couple of products that can go ahead and handle that and not allow it to transfer back up. So the first product Gerald's going to talk, we're going to demo for you, is Mapelastic CI. Now, Mapelastic CI is a single coat application product. Comes in a bucket. You're going to roll it out. While Gerald's doing that, guys, I want to talk to the men in the audience here. All Mapei products come in 4 languages, the instructions. English, Spanish, French, and then we have man pictures. The man pictures are there because we know you're not going to read any of those other languages as a man, but you will look at the little pictures. So make sure you find the man pictures, whether it's on the back of the bucket, the back of the bag, or in this case, in this little pamphlet that's on top of these buckets. Look at the man pictures, follow the directions. If you want the product to be used and to work, you need to follow the directions. Now, you see what Gerald's doing here is he's loading up the roller, a 3/8 inch nap roller. And this is important. Don't pour the product on the floor and then smear it around with the roller. Trying to put down a nice even coat. There is an amount of product that you can put down. By the way, for all of these products and any products similar to these, you can go to the Mapei app and you can check it out there. But what Gerald's doing is rolling it down. Now notice the way Gerald's rolling it down. There's a hard side to a roller and there's what we like to call a soft side to a roller. This is considered the hard side to the roller. You want to roll towards this side. And the reason is that as you're rolling away, this edge bends and feathers out. Gerald, flip that roller around and show them what happens when you... What happens there is you get what we like to call W's. Now the W's, there's twice as much product when you roll the wrong way. And guess how much longer it's going to take for that to dry if there's twice as much product? Let's see if there's any mathematicians out there. I heard it. I heard it. Do you hear it? All right. Twice as much. That's right. It's going to take twice as long. It's a really simple hack, guys, and it works with painting walls. It works with everything. Anytime you're using a single edge roller like this, always roll towards this side right here. You'll always be good. So Gerald's rolling that out. Now this has 1/8 inch crack isolation properties. It's going to take about 30 to 50 minutes to dry. Why is there such a difference in the time that it takes to dry? It depends. Right now, it's rainy outside, so there's a lot of humidity. The water has to leave the product. That's how this dries. And so right now, it's struggling to leave the product. We're in a place like Arizona, Southern California, in drier climates, that water is evaporating out of there quickly. So it depends on what part of the country you're in, and just depends on what the temperatures are like. But you want to go ahead, roll an even coat down, and that's it. Let it dry, and then you can go back over top of this. This is really ideal for new concrete slabs that are 28 days or older, just to help a little bit of insurance. And it's going to give you a consistent surface to bond to when you spread your mortar on top. This is designed with ceramic and porcelain tile in mind, this product. The next product Gerald's going to work with is Aqua Defense. Now, Aqua Defense has the exact same crack isolation properties as Mapelastic CI does, which is 1/8 of an inch. But you're going to notice Aqua Defense is slightly different. If you remember the older Aqua Defense, it would dry a dark green. Well, we listened to what the people were saying, and there were some complaints about that dark green being difficult to see in low light scenarios. So we lightened the color up. We did not take anything out of the Aqua Defense other than pigment. So the performance value is exactly the same. Now, Aqua Defense requires 2 coats because it's a waterproof membrane. Hold on one second before you get started on that. Now think about that. If I'm waterproofed, that means 100%. I cannot, under any terms at all, be 99% waterproofed, and I'm waterproof. That means I have a leak. And the only way I can pretty much guarantee that that's going to happen is I need you to put 2 coats on. The first coat, I want you to go for complete and full coverage, but just in case there's a pinhole somewhere. Because if you know anything about water, you know it's sneaky and it will always find a way to leak on you. If you look down right here, before Gerald does that, we put Aqua Defense in a cardboard box. Now, I'm going to pour some water. Now, I'm not saying I want you to waterproof cardboard. It's not the purpose of the product. I'm just showing you that this product works. It's a dual application product. You roll it on, you let the first coat dry, and then you roll the second coat on in an opposite direction. And the reason you're doing that is you don't fall into any of the lines. Go ahead. You don't fall into any of the lines. Now, the first coat's going to dry pretty quick. Remember, what's happening? There's water inside of the product. It's a water-based waterproof membrane. When the water evaporates and leaves, it leaves the rubber and acrylic behind, forming a barrier that prevents water from coming down. Not vapor coming up, water from coming down. That's waterproofing. So I'm waterproofing a shower. So it's going to dry pretty quick. The second coat is going to go over top with what's already waterproofed. The first coat, the water gets pulled down into the pores and evaporates up into the air. The second coat can only go in one direction, so it's going to take twice as long for that second coat to go ahead and dry. You'll start to notice on the board, you can see when Gerald goes over the existing, we already put 1 coat on the board. And you will be able to see through this. Now the reason, again, we switched to this lighter green color was there was some complaints about blue chalk and red chalk, dark colored chalk lines in non-well-lit areas. And if you've ever worked in construction, the bathrooms only have like 1 little light bulb hanging in them when you're in there trying to work. And those low-lit areas, it was difficult to see the blue chalk line. The solution was simple. Just pull some of the pigment out of it. And that's what we did. And you've got this beautiful color green here that rolls out. And you roll it on in one direction, and then the next coat, the second coat you're going to do, you're going into the other direction. Now, do I need tape and stuff into the corners? If you built the bathroom or the waterproof system, let's just say we're doing a shower. If we've done this the proper way, according to the Tile Council of North America's standards, the joints are already taped off like they're supposed to be. And there's no gaps. And so, no, I don't need any fabric or anything. However, if there are some gaps, anything bigger than 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, I probably want to go ahead and tape. So I would put Aqua Defense in there and then use some sort of seam tape to go in there and protect that. Let that dry and then come back over top of it. Now, when I'm putting that tape on, that does not count as a coat. That counts as the tape going and being applied to it. So you want to make sure that if you have any big gaps, because if you put too much Aqua Defense in there, the outside of it is going to skin over and the inside is going to stay soft and gooey. And then when you come back in with your trowel to spread mortar on top of that, you're going to tear that skin off and you're going to have that creamy filling coming out onto the floor and you're no longer waterproofed. So thinner is better. 2 thin coats, and it should end up about the thickness of a credit card, which is 20 mils. Not my wife's credit card, because she uses that a lot, and it's probably down to about 12 mils now. But a 20 mil thickness on a credit card is what we're shooting for on the thickness, and 2 coats will get you there. If you look now, you can see where the first coat was at. It's difficult to see through that because now I have the 2 coats, whereas it's already drying on the first coat over here. So I have 2 products here that do 2 different things. This one is a crack isolation membrane. This one can be a crack isolation membrane also, but this one is not a waterproof membrane. This one is just strictly a crack isolation membrane. This one's a waterproof membrane, Aqua Defense. And I need you to go ahead and put 2 coats down and make sure it's good. Check all the seams, make sure around the drain you're good, seal up those corners good, and you're gonna have a great project. And waterproofing is extremely, extremely important before you go ahead. About 12 hours if you need the flood test. I can go ahead and set tile on this if I don't need the flood test in a couple of hours, depending upon where you're located at. And again, when in doubt, read the instructions. Please read the instructions. Hey, next coming up is patching and skim coating. Really important. All right, let's talk about skim coating and patching. So the first product we're going to talk about is SC, Planus Prep SC. Now this is a skim coating product. It can go up to 1 inch, but that's now leaning more towards a patching product when we get that thick. But the 1 inch really comes in is that if I have whoopties or holes in the floor, little blowouts from maybe they removed the wall and the wall was shot down with a Hilti gun and now they've removed the wall and you want to patch the floor. Now, before we get too deep into this, I want to tell you the value and benefits of doing this. I was taught and raised in the business as a VCT installer. That's the foundation of where I come from when it comes to flooring installations. And I was always taught you skim coat every floor. And they never really told me why back in the late 70s, early 80s, but they told me that's what I had to do. So I did. And some floors really didn't need it that much. And literally a 10-pound bag would seem like it would go on forever. But the advantage, as now that I work for Mapei and I get to work with the scientists and the chemists, the advantage is I'm controlling the surface pH. And by doing that, I will control the dry times of any water-based adhesives that I put on top. So instead of having these hot spots and these dry spots, by skimming the whole floor, I have the exact same pH all the way across the top. I fill in any little undulations. If I'm going to use soft goods like vinyl, Gerald, if you would go right ahead, like vinyl sheet goods or something to that effect, eventually, as it heats up and as it gets walked on, it will take the exact shape of the floor. How many times have you gone to the grocery store that has a vinyl floor and looked at it with its 27 coats of wax and you can see these bumps and rolls through the floor? That's because they didn't do a proper job with the surface prep before they put it in. So surface prep is key, absolutely, especially with softer goods. You can't bridge across openings whereas I can with like a harder goods. A piece of wood or a piece of ceramic or marble, if there's just a slight undulation in the floor, I can fill that up with adhesive or mortar that'll go ahead and help bridge that across and support it. But when it's soft goods, I can't bridge across there. So surface prep is key. You want to skim it out. Again, you want to read the instructions. You want to skim it out. Now, something you need to remember here, this is rapid setting. This is not normal cement. This is calcium aluminate cement, which is a rapid setting cement. Nobody wants to patch a floor and wait around 5 hours for it to dry. That's not anybody's intent here. So you only mix up what you can use in 15 minutes, and probably sooner than that. The hotter it is outside, the faster this is going to dry up. The drier it is outside, the faster this is going to dry up. So Arizona, pay attention. Las Vegas, pay attention. Mix up smaller amounts, mix them up, and get them on the floor as soon as possible. Get them out of the bucket and onto the floor. Now, using a trowel, and everybody has their favorite patching trowel, and I'll never tell anybody what trowel to use patching, being an ex-patcher. I still have my favorite trowel at home. But you want to go ahead and skim coat and flatten out the floor. If you don't get it perfect the first time, that's okay. You can come back over with a buffer and some sandpaper and just gently knock it down, and a lot of times it'll fix the floor. But remember, before I put any adhesive on that floor, I want to sweep it and I want to vacuum it. I want to make sure that floor is perfectly flat. So now I have a stable pH, because if the pH is off or indifferent, it'll impact the way glue dries. You ever gone ahead and spread glue on a floor and seen spots that were still wet when everything around it was dry and wonder why that happened? A lot of times that's pH related, and this is how you can control that, by skim coating a floor out. So we're gonna have a flat, smooth surface, rapid setting. You're gonna skim it down with it as tight as you can to the floor. This is going to dry, it's smooth. You wanna mix it, guys, you wanna read the instructions. Once again, it's on the back of the bag. You wanna read the instructions on how much water to mix it with if you're gonna mix the whole bag. Other than that, have a good time installing. The next product that we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna apply right here is Quick Patch. This is different. This is a skim coat. Now we're going to go to a patch. Gerald, if you would. Gerald's going to go and mix that. So let me tell you a story about Quick Patch. This is one of those unique products. We started and developed, when I say we, Mapei Corporation, started and developed this product to fill deep holes before you poured self-leveler. That was its only mission in life when we designed the product. We sent it into the labs. They went ahead and they developed the product. We tested the product. A lot of times on jobs, there's big holes where there might have been a 2-story house or a 3-story house or a 3-story building, and there's these big holes where they drilled through, or something's happened, you pulled something out, and now you've got this big blowout in the floor, or you've got a 2-inch elevation or a 3-inch elevation. And that's what this product started out as. Something just to fill those deep holes, and then you poured the self-leveler on top. Well, when we put it in the hands of installers, as always, they went ahead and found every other thing the product could do. They basically did the field test for us. And that's awesome that they did that. We had to rewrite the data sheet after 6 months, because we found out people were using it outside, people were using it inside. And by the way, this is an interior grade product. Interior only. Inside, acclimated room, air conditioning or heat, in the living conditions that humans are going to live in that building in, that's where you use this product at. This product right here, 40 to 90 degrees, interior or exterior. This is different. This is next level. Now, this has a microscopic aggregate in there, so you can go from 0 to 1 inch when skim coating it and troweling it. This one has the really fine amount of sand in there, and the minimum thickness you can go is 1/16 of an inch, because that grain of sand is rolling around on top and the edge of your trowel is on top of the sand. So it's leaving 1/16 of an inch behind. It can't go to 0 because the sand is holding the trowel up in the air. And that's why certain products are designed for skim coating and certain products are designed for patching. It's based on the size of the aggregate. That also determines how deep they can go. The bigger the aggregate, the deeper a product or the thicker a product can go. This product right here can go, in filling a hole in a confined space, can go up to 3 inches, and I can add pea gravel, 3/8 inch pea gravel to it, washed and cleaned, and I can extend and double that thickness. So if I have a big hole I want to fill up, I can mix this with some aggregate and pour it into the hole and skim out the top of it and let it dry, and then come over top and skim over the whole floor, and it is not going to crack. This is a rapid setting product, and this product has some properties with a big word associated with it. It's called exothermic. Exothermic means that the more product there is, the more the molecules rub together. And the more the molecules rub together, the more they generate heat. And the more heat they generate, the faster the molecules rub together. And the whole point to this is that the thicker the product, the faster it will dry because there's more molecules rubbing together. So think about it. We're going to ramp this down from the top of this board, which is 2 inches, down to a 1/16 and 1/8 of an inch. At the top of that ramp, it's going to dry faster than at the 1/16 of an inch because there's more heat being generated. And you literally can feel the heat. This product can go ahead and ramp down interior or exterior. Where I like this is in my neck of the woods. A lot of people buy older houses and they close in the garages. The garages were designed to be exterior grade places, and now they're going to be an interior grade place. This is not afraid of moisture in the slab or water. So if I'm going to go ahead and do a wood floor and use a moisture resistant adhesive, that moisture is going to get trapped up underneath the adhesive. If I use a standard patch, it's going to dilute that standard patch and break it down. Whereas something like this is going to hold steady because it's exterior grade and interior grade. So Quick Patch is a solution that almost every contractor should have on their truck or in their car. And every homeowner should have it around if they're doing some remodeling work. This is an amazing product. Come on, Gerald, bring it on in here. So the first thing you're going to notice about the product is it's a natural gray, so it looks like concrete. It's going to match concrete. Go ahead. Now, when you use this product, because it's interior exterior, I want to wet down the surface first, at least with a sponge. If it's a bigger surface, take a bug sprayer and then mist it with water. But I want the first drink of water I want this to have should come from something that you added to it. And by doing that, then it will not pull the water out of the product before it has a chance to make the cement particles react. Without getting too scientific-y, it's a big word, without getting too scientific-y, here's what happens. Think about a sponge when you pull it out of a wrapper. As soon as you throw it in water, it doesn't absorb water because there's air inside of those pores where the water would get absorbed. You have to manually squeeze the sponge and squeeze out the air and pull in the water. You're priming the sponge is what you're doing. By adding water with this product, you're priming that slab. The water's going into the pores that are existing, pushing the air out, and now when I go over top of it, it's welcoming and pulling down the product down into the pores. If you trap this product with the air still into those pores, it would just sit on the surface and would decrease your bond strengths. So that is about as tight as you can pull the product right there. And if you listen, you can hear it grinding. You can hear the aggregate that's in the product. You're doing an amazing job, Gerald. Again, interior, exterior. Here's where I like it with remodels, when you have those elevation differences. I was talking about a garage being closed in. You might have a step up. You might frame up the garage. The other thing the garage floor is doing is the garage floor is pitched, so if water gets in there, water runs out. Which is a reason why you never want to put self-leveler outside, by the way. Because if I have a flat floor, where's the water going to go? I always want water moving away from a building. I never want water gathering at a building. So it goes from a skim coat. It fills deep holes, but the thing that this thing does really well is the ramping aspect of it. So you can see that it ramps, it doesn't slump down, it doesn't hold down. And you've got about 10 minutes to work with the product before it gets away from you. When it gets away, it gets away. It goes pretty quick. So this ramping, because of the exothermic properties, the ramping is going to make the product cure faster at the thickest part of the ramp and slower at the thinner part of the ramp. Now, if you wanted to make this a prettier product, you could go ahead and mist the top of this floor and just one time with a little bit of water and clean it up onto the top. But this is really an underlayment type scenario. Something's going to go over top of this, and it's really for deep fill and for patching. Remember, skim coating, patching. This can go up to 3 inches. And in an open area, if we were ramping a big long area, every 24 feet. So if I go out 4 feet, every 6 feet, I would just want to take a margin trowel or my trowel, and I would want to put a seam in there. That way it could expand and it could go ahead and dry properly. If you just went continuous, it would generate so much heat that it would wind up cracking a little bit. So go ahead every 4 to 6 feet if I'm doing a large area and going and leaving a line or leaving a seam for that heat to dissipate out of there. Skim coat, deep fill patch. So we've covered 2 different options now for getting this floor. Underneath wood floors, phenomenal, because again, that water's going to get trapped up underneath that wood finish, that waterproof wood finish, and it's not going to break this product down. And that is hugely important. And the flatter the floor, the easier the install. And that includes wood, carpet, vinyl, that includes ceramic, that really includes some of these larger tiles. Have you seen the size of tiles lately that are coming out? They're getting gigantic. And the thing is that nobody's saying out loud enough is with those larger tiles, you need flatter floors. There's less forgiveness. The tiles are thinner and you need way more surface prep than what we used to need for those larger tiles. So this covers manually prepping a floor, whether it be a skim coat or a patch. The thing we're going to talk about next is self-leveling. We're at the last group of products for surface prep. So the other products, you had to manually apply them with the trowel, and it required a little bit of skill, but not much, but you were going ahead and flattening out that floor as best you could. Now, I'm going to introduce you to a couple of products. First products is, they're primers before we pour self-leveler. Now, don't let the name self-leveler fool you. You just don't pour it and walk away from it. There are some tools that you need to go ahead and make sure that it levels out, but it really, really does flatten the floor out completely. First thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about primer T. Gerald, if you would. So with primer T, you want to prime the floor always before you pour self-leveler. There's never an instance where you don't put a primer down. Here's why. There is nothing more scientific for us to make than self-levelers. It's almost defying the laws of gravity. I'm mixing a cement product with water. There's a sand aggregate inside of that cement product. I'm maintaining that sand aggregate floats completely through the matrix of that cement product if I mix it the proper way. If I overmix it, then the sand sinks down. Or if I overwater it, then the sand sinks down. If I don't prime the floor, then what happens is that the substrate, whether it be plywood or concrete or any substrate, will wind up pulling the water out of the matrix down into the pores before it has a chance to activate the particle of cement that's in there. So it really is a work of science how this all works. So the primer goes into the pores and bonds. Now there's an open time for the primer. Where do you find that information? Come on, guys, I've been telling you the whole time where to find it at. Oh, I heard somebody say the instructions. You guys are listening. That's right, the instructions. It'll tell you the open time for this product. In other words, don't put it down today and go away for the weekend and come back Monday and go ahead and think you can pour self-leveler on top. You've exceeded the open time. This needs to get pulled down into the pores and start to dry. And then it reacts with the cement when you pour the self-leveler over top of it. And it allows the cement particle then to press into it as it grows its spikes and press into the surface, and that locks it up and that grabs it. And that makes sure that that's bonded to the substrate, and that now, this is now the substrate that the self-leveler is bonded to, and they all like each other and they all link together. Great job, Gerald. Now, one of the things you're going to notice, look at that amazing color. I learned it's magenta. They told me that in marketing. I don't quite know what magenta is, but it's that color right there is what magenta is. We did that because we don't want you to miss spots. This primer used to dry clear. And in doing so, there was an opportunity. It would come out milky white and would dry clear. In doing so, it was a chance for you to go ahead and miss spots. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk to you about, and the next product I'm going to talk to you about, is really interesting. This is called Eco Prim Grip. And again, this is one of those products where we put it in the hands of installers, and they told us what the product can do. So the original use of this product was to go tile over tile. I'm going to bond tile over top of existing tile. So in here is an acrylic that has a big chunky sand. If you look here, I've already put some on here, and I don't know if you can hear that, but what that's showing you is that there is a very coarse chunky sand that's on the surface there, giving me a rough surface. It's going to help with me bonding. If I wanted to bond mortar directly to the top of that tile, that sand, when it dries, is going to help me do that. The other place I can use this for is with self-levelers, especially in like high traffic areas. If I'm doing a commercial application or I'm doing a storefront, someplace where there's going to be a lot of pressure, wheel pressure on the floor, that sand sticking up is going to help to make sure I don't get a shearing effect and break loose that self-leveler on top there. So this, to me, is a do-all product. It's a single coat application. You just roll it on. It can go directly on top of tile on walls. You've got ugly tile in your bathroom. Instead of tearing the whole thing down, you don't have any leaks in your plumbing. Everything is working great. It's just not that good looking. It's dated. Make sure you clean it off. There's no waxes, sealers, greases. There's no shampoo residue, all of that. It needs to get clean, pristine, and then roll this product on. And you can go ahead then and tile right over top of that, especially with some of the new thin tiles that are out there and some of these new thin tile panels that are larger that are out there. So this is a great opportunity. By doing that right there, it dries in about 30 to 35 minutes. It allows me to go ahead and spread mortar that's right on top. Now, while Gerald's off mixing self-leveler, I'm going to talk to you about some of the tools that we use for self-leveler. So the first thing, this right here is a smoother. This is what I finish off the self-leveler after I pour it. There's going to be another product. It's called a gauge rake. This is a gauge rake. So I've determined that this is the depth that I want to put my self-levelers. I've measured the floor, and I don't have any whoopties that are more than maybe 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to go ahead to 1/4 of an inch and set these skis down, and they're adjustable here. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull my self-leveler across the floor. Now, one of the new trends that I see, and it's a big trend in the tile business, is floating floor systems. And I don't have a problem with floating floor systems. I love the concept because, again, you have an ugly floor or you have a floor you're not happy with, and you can go ahead and make an absolutely stunning looking floor really quickly. There's just one scenario. This floor is very thin. If you look at the thickness of this floor, and it is designed to rest on the bottom. And if I have a high spot or I have a low spot in the floor and I don't address it, I don't have the flattest possible surface and I don't address that, then all of the weight of someone like me standing on top of that floor is transferred to this really thin, delicate tongue. You see, the tongue on this floor was designed to hold it together, not to support it and hold it up. The bottom of this floor is designed with cushions on it to help knock the noise down. It was designed to hold and support the floor up. The tongue is not designed to support the floor. No floor system requires surface prep more. Out of all the floor systems out there, no floor system requires surface prep more than a click-together system. It needs to be as flat as possible, so it's making full contact. Henceforth, extending the life of the warranty of that floor, extending the use of that floor. What is the sense of putting down a beautiful floor like this, and in 6 months now, you have broken boards and loose boards because you didn't do the surface prep on the front side of it? So self-leveler is a great choice for this because it minimizes the work of getting the floor flat and level. It does most of the work for you. We're going to show you that in a minute. But I just wanted to talk to you about that. And think about these larger tiles again. And these larger tiles, they need to have full coverage underneath them. And the best way to do that, again, is having a flat floor. One of the things we learned is as the tiles got bigger, the self-leveling sales started to grow as the tiles got bigger, because installers realized, commercial installers realized that they needed a flat floor. And they could spend all day long with a screed bar doing that, or they can go ahead and mix up self-leveler and in a couple of hours be done with the room, come back tomorrow and just install right on top, knowing they had a flat surface to work with. Instead of fighting the floor worked with them, not against them. I can hear Gerald out there mixing. I'm going to remove this, because what we're going to do is we're going to do this cooking show style. We have primed the floor. This board is already primed. I primed it, by the way, with Eco Prim Grip because I wanted to show you both primers. So you have primer T and you have primer Eco Prim Grip, which can both be used for self-levelers. I'm going to move this out of the way. I want to tell you, when it comes to mixing self-leveler, it's going to tell you to mix it for 3 minutes. You mix self-leveler for 3 minutes. There's no room for freestyling with self-leveler. This is way too serious. You measure the water. If you don't have a way to measure the water, you need to come up with a way. You need to find an exact measurement. If it tells you 5.5 quarts, or if it tells you 6 quarts, you measure the water. Now quickly, if you're on a job site, you don't have a measuring device. Guys, how many quarts are in a gallon? Oh, I heard somebody say 4. That's right. So if somebody had a gallon jug of water, that'd be a full gallon jug and a half. And that would be 6 quarts. Read the bag, find out how much water, and you only mix with water. You don't mix with anything else. Here's another thing. If you're at someone's house, it's summertime right now. They have a black garden hose. You go outside, turn on the black garden hose, and immediately put the water into your mixing bucket. What you have there is a solar heat system. You want to let that water run. You don't want to mix it with hot water. You want to mix it with cool, clean water. Come on in, Gerald. All right, Gerald's going to pour the self-leveler. Remember, it's called self-leveler. It doesn't mean it's going to level itself. You always want to push. Stop for a second. You always want to pour into what's already wet. Think about it like making pancakes. If you're trying to make one big pancake, you don't pour batter on one side of the pan and the other and hope they blend and meld together. It doesn't work like that. You'll get a figure-8 pancake. When my kids were little, that was not going to work. They wanted a round pancake. So the only way you're going to get that round pancake is to pour into what's already poured. Thank you, Gerald. Now I'm going to show you what we do with these right here. Again, this is the gauge rake. You're not putting a lot of pressure. You're going to let the tool do the work. These skis are going to go ahead and drag onto the bottom, and they're going to leave a little gap, and it's going to put down a continuous monolithic layer of material. I know it's a big word for me. So I'm pulling the gauge rake across. It's pulling the material, and now I know I have a consistent level of material down. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Look at that. All right. Next thing is we're going to use a smoother. Another way of doing this is called a spike roller. Spike roller will take the place of the gauge rake and a smoother in some cases. If I was doing thin vinyl, I wouldn't use a spike roller because it leaves little dimples. This is a smoother, or as my friend Pierre from Canada calls it, a smooter. The smoother now takes the product, pushes down what's on top, and rotates around. It breaks what they call that surface tension. Now this kind of requires a delicate hand. Let's pretend for a minute we were pouring self-leveler in this tire room right here. At some point, I'm gonna have to walk into the self-leveler. So we've poured the first batch into the corner. My job with the gauge rake now is to keep pushing it in because it's gonna wanna run out. Keep pushing it in. Gerald's gonna be mixing up and he brings another bucket full and he pours it right into what's wet and existing. Now with the gauge rake, I'm gonna take the gauge rake and I'm gonna pull the old into the new and the new into the old. I'm gonna blend them together so there's not a seam. And now I'm just controlling it. I'm making sure it doesn't get away from me, but someone's going to follow behind me with the smoother. And with the smoother, you support the bottom of it and you just gently let it glide across the top of the surface. And what that does is that the first thing, we'll go back to baking. If this was a cake and I pulled it out of the oven, what would dry quicker, the middle of the cake or the top of the cake? The top of the cake would cool faster than the middle of the cake. Well, that's what's happening here. The water that needs to evaporate to make this turn into concrete or cement the water on the top is evaporating faster than the water in the middle. By me doing this, I rotate and push it around so it evenly cures and dries at the exact same time. Also, and I don't know if you can see it, but there's air, little air bubbles trapped inside of here. And you'll see it looks like it's percolating if you look closely. And that's exactly what's happening. So now as the weight of the product is settling down, it's squeezing the air out. And you're seeing these this is exactly what it's supposed to do. There is nothing wrong with this product. This is exactly what it's supposed to do. It's doing its job. And as the cement particles grow together, the more you play with the product, the easier it is at first, but after about 7 to 10 minutes, it's going to start to lock up on you. If you pull that gauge rake or that smoother across there and it doesn't flow back out, see right now, it's self-healing. So it just goes and flows back across where it's supposed to. But if you go ahead and take that gauge rake and it doesn't self-heal, now you've got a problem. And so what you do is you just move on and you can come back and patch that later on. But the floor is starting to get away from you. It's locking up on you and you need to keep moving. Once you start self-leveling, you can't stop. You need to keep moving until the room is done. So here it is primed. Here it is freshly poured. And over here is like a cooking show. I'm very proud. Over here is the final look. Look at that floor. Look how smooth, look at the finish on that floor. Any floor that you put on here, you're going to get full and complete support. So the floor is handling, the substrate is handling all the pressure on top of that floor, and you're letting the floor system do its job. This is part of being a good floor system, and this is what surface prep is all about. Preparing that substrate so you can go ahead. I can now put ceramic tile on top of here. I can go ahead and put glue a wood floor on top of here. I can go ahead and put down a floating floor system on top of here and not have a problem. Thank you for watching and thank you for paying attention. I'm Sam from Mapei. That's Gerald. We appreciate your business. Thank you for being you.